morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon, good night, whenever you are around the world. Thank you so much for joining today. It's a very important day for us at the ILO, and we are very excited to present this new manual on digitalization and blending of training programs. We're going to be having a number of speakers today to present the manual, what it is, and hopefully we'll be able to get questions and answers by the end of the session. With further ado, I'm going to hand over to my colleague Patrick Daru, that is the Skills Training Excellence Unit Head. Thank you very much. Over to you, Patrick.
Thank you very much, Juan. Good day, everybody. We thank you very much for joining us. It's a pleasure to welcome you to this important webinar on the future of skills development in an increasingly digital world. Today, we're discussing a new ILO guidance piece, a practical guide on digitalization and blending of training programs. Digital transformation and AI have reshaped the way that we learn, the way that we work, and the way that we train. They are fundamentally redefining job roles and creating urgent needs for continuous upskilling and reskilling across industries. At the same time, current training approaches alone cannot meet the growing demand for digital skills. Indeed, there are significant shortfalls in the training ecosystem, particularly around digital teaching methods and the availability of high-quality online learning resources. Too often, we see that training solutions proposed are not adapted to the context where they are implemented or don't match the capacity of the learners. We also see that many training providers do not make the most of the increasing potential of digitalization and artificial intelligence for competency standards, for training materials, to implement blended training solution, and to track the employment results of a training. The possibilities are huge and underexploited. Last but not least, not all micro-credentials are stakeable and many do not lead to full qualification. Still, technology can facilitate access to training for new population at lower costs and accommodate diverse learning needs, and increase the inclusivity of skills development program. This aligns very well with the ILO commitment to putting learners' needs first through a learner-centered lifelong learning approach. And we take inspiration for this from ILO Convention on Human Resources 142, which underlines the importance of linking training with learners' aspiration and experience, as well as market demand. Technology is not a tool. It's a tool, it's not a goal. It should serve as an enabler towards the ultimate objective of empowering individuals with essential skills and knowledge for success in the rapidly changing work environment. So this guide offers hands-on strategies for integrating digital and AI tools into skills development program. It's built around real-world case studies, actionable frameworks, and lessons learned from diverse global contexts. It is intended to support training providers in designing inclusive, effective, and sustainable blended learning systems in close collaboration with relevant institutions and with social partners. The guide is a core piece of a digitalization ecosystem for skills development that we are developing. And I want to mention some other items of this ecosystem. We have a new platform being piloted in Colombia called ILO Goya that allows instructors to generate training materials with AI. We have also virtual reality modules co-developed in Ukraine with ETF for green construction skills. We have also new guidance on artificial intelligence being developed in China for Tibet instructors, and you're going to see a video about this. We have also a service tracker that captures the employment results of a training. In today's session, we aim to give you a flavor of what you can expect to find in this guide. We aim to share success stories and challenges from the field and to open a space for dialogue and knowledge exchange among practitioners. Very importantly for us also, we would like to identify potential partners for piloting ILO innovation on skill digitalization and artificial intelligence. I want to thank all the contributors to this guide, including the technical experts, the pilot institutions, and the partner organization. We have an exciting lineup of speakers who bring both strategic and practical perspective to the discussions. After the presentation, there will be time for Q&A, so please feel free to use the Q&A function to send in your question. With that, let's dive into our first presentation and explore how we can collectively shape the future of skills training in the digital age. Juan, over to you.
Thank you very much, Patrick. So yes, let's jump into the manual presentation. After this presentation, we will have another presentation from our colleague in China, as Patrick was referring to, the AI training that we've been providing to training instructors. And after that, we will have Enrique Blanco, that has been one of the main contributors to this manual, and I will present himself a bit later, and then we will open the Q&A. So this manual, first of all, it's a guide that has been created in order to make sure that we have training providers, policymakers, and stakeholders within the skills development that they are wishing to transition into either fully digitalizing things and going into e-learnings, or also blending, right? So having a bit of both, right? When this manual started, of course, some of our constituents and some of these training partners were already very advanced. But at the same time, there were others that were lagging behind, and still is the case today. Of course, irrespective of the fact that these new technologies enable us to do digital and blending, we still have issues such as the digital divide, of course, right? And having sufficient people with devices, etc., to go into these modalities. But despite that, there is a growing interest, and this is why we put together this manual. This manual follows a step-by-step approach to make sure that any training institution can systematically implement and then manage this transition. On the right-hand side, you can see this picture of Yeti. So Yeti is the Youth Educational and Training Institution. It's a completely fake. We invented the Yeti so that throughout the manual, Yeti can be a good example to illustrate how to move from a face-to-face, offline, instructor-led, brick-and-mortar setup, if you will, until a much more digital, asynchronous, student-led, and then online or blended format, right? The steps that we're proposing in this manual are 6. So the first is the understanding the digital training context. So the objective of this chapter is really to make sure that you know how to assess what is your current digital status of your training systems. More specifically, you would learn how to conduct self-assessment, right? And in the manual, you will have a number of tools for this doing to get a sense of what is your, as a training provider, what is your status related to the key aspects of digitalization and blending. The second thing you will learn here is how to undertake a readiness assessment. So to understand from the key stakeholders until the market realities and the ambitions in terms of digital infrastructure, digital skills, all the regulatory framework in the different countries, and what are the attitudes and mindsets that are needed to undertake this transformation. And the third part of this first step will be around planning for the implementation of all the steps towards digitalization based on these previous 2 analyses that I just mentioned. The second step is really to make sure that you know how to identify training programs and modules that you want to digitalize and blend. So here, if you want very specifically, you will first learn how to identify and prioritize the training programs that you have for this digitalization and blending. And secondly, it will help you to select which programs are needed for the inclusion of these training programs based on their market currency and your own priorities, therefore how to update your portfolio. Step 3, this one will be around how to identify learning situations for the blending of learning, right? Firstly, you will help the methodology on how to identify the appropriate blending options, and again, how to prioritize if you have different models of digitalization or different curricula. Secondly, it will help to utilize scenario-based learning, where you have a learner-centered training and understanding the importance of this continuous evaluation of the different learning scenarios. And the third part dwells on how to create a storyboard of learning situations. There is other tools like empathy maps or assessments to make sure that the learning outcomes are clear from the get-go. On step 4, then we'll move into how to blend these contents. So really, it's the creation of the material. So here you will go from understanding what are the different options, what are the multimedia tools, how can you choose between the different options that are available, if you're going to be using video, pictures, or audios, or any other dynamic ways of engaging with your students. We'll show you how to work with OERs, so open educational resources, how to decide on what is the best format that will fit with your learning objectives. And then, yeah, as you go, this is an iterative approach, so how to improve the blended mix of this, as this curriculum will need to be constantly updated. Then we'll move into step 5. This one is specifically on assessments and digital certifications. This one would be interesting so that you will learn how to select the appropriate blended assessments method, how to gather the evidence required to establish whether a learner is competent and to which level of proficiency. And then it will also show you how to implement these blended assessments, right, that we're referring to, implement them, store the data, the results, monitor the quality, etc., right? And last but not least, we touch also on the digital certifications, which is also an interesting area of high demand. And lastly, we'll move into step 6. So step 6 is the feedback loop and continuous improvement. As I mentioned, this is a step that is iterative. So you can start on step 1, continue, but then you will reach step 6. And really here is about understanding this feedback loop process and how to implement a feedback loop that brings a constant improvement, right? So what is the qualitative and quantitative data that you can use, how to set KPIs, how to, so it really goes about having the proper quality insurance mechanisms so that what you have decided on previous steps is properly delivered, and then iterate, say, okay, now I need to change something again and again and again. So this is in a nutshell what you will find on the manual. With this, let me just stop sharing and sharing again with audio because our colleague Siam sent us a video for the next session. Let me make sure. No. For some reason, the share sound option is not enabled. Okay, let's try anyway. Please let me know if you can hear the video or not, please.
Distinguished guests and colleagues, I'm Xian Guan from ILO Country Office for China and Mongolia. I'm the National Project Manager currently implementing Quality Apprenticeship and Lifelong Learning in China Project Phase 2. I'm very happy to contribute to our Guide Launch webinar today as the theme of digitalization and blending of training programs is becoming more and more essential in our skills development nowadays. When you read this guide, you can find that artificial intelligence, the AI, can be utilized or is being used in vocational training, like developing learning contents. So today, I just want to briefly share with you what ILO is doing to build the capacity of TVET teachers and trainers in China to better understand and utilize the AI. Since 2024, the ILO has been working with Microsoft and national experts to build AI competencies of TVET teachers as well as in-company trainers in China through the project. We called it AI Vibe Series. This series consists of 3 components: webinars, guide development, and capacity building workshops. In particular, I want to highlight the guide development, as now we don't have a comprehensive guide specifically for technical and vocational training teachers about how to use AI properly and effectively. So we are doing some pioneering work here at the country level. Last year, we already held 2 knowledge-sharing webinars to our constituents and TVET practitioners. We've invited ILO and Microsoft experts to introduce how the AI could support better TVET delivery and how to use AI in a responsible way. Now we are finalizing our AI skilling guide for TVET trainers in China with our experts. This guide encompasses essential skills for TVET teachers to integrate AI into their teaching and training, such as creating effective prompts, handling cleric work in campus, developing vivid teaching materials, generating exercise and exam questions, supporting student performance data analysis, and so forth. We aim to have this guide come out this summer. So the guide is a Chinese one. We do believe that all these components may be applicable in other contexts, and we'll plan an English version too. That's all from my side about our AI Vibe series in China. Thank you very much.
All right.
15.
So hopefully the sound was good. Thank you for that. So now we're going to move into talking to our colleague Enrique Blanco. So he's currently the development and project manager at EF Vita in Belgium. But at the time that we started doing this manual, he was working at the École Hôtelière de Paul de Brûle in Cambodia. So thank you very much, Enrique, for making the time to being here with us today. If you would like, please share with us how did your experience working in Cambodia back in the days was, and how we came about starting the discussions about creating this manual. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Juan Ivan, and thank you to the ILO for the invitation. I'm very pleased to be here and to share about the experience that we had in Cambodia since 2020 when COVID hit it for the first time. I'm gonna share my screen just to have some support slides. Okay, give me a second. So basically, our experience in Cambodia started when we had a sudden closing of schools. So I was at the time was working at École d'Hôtellerie de Tourisme Paul de Brûle. So this is a TVET school for tourism and hospitality skills. We have about 300 students every year, around 20 teachers and trainers working at the school. And since February 2020, the schools suddenly closed for about 6 months from one day to the other. So we had to switch from in-person learning to remote learning in a matter of less than 24 hours. So we were very lucky to actually started exploring new learning environments back in the end of 2019 through Skills Challenge Innovation Call started by the ILO in collaboration with the UN in Cambodia and the Ministry of Labor and Vocational Training in Cambodia. So we prepared this our proposal for this Skills Challenge Innovation Call based on a blended learning model. And so through the challenge, we got support from the ILO to develop this idea of blended learning in TVET for hospitality and tourism. And in the proposal, we basically focus on 3 main pillars. So at first, the digitalization of the curricula. the implementation of a learning management system. So basically the infrastructure where this learning environment will be accessible both for learners, but also for the practitioners. And the third key pillar is e-pedagogy. So basically develop digital skills in pedagogy, but also in learning for the students. And so it took us about, I would say, 3 to 6 months to come up with our first model. So we went through the different steps of the guide that Juan Ivan introduced today. I would say that the first 2 steps were the most straightforward. At the same time, we didn't have much time to go very much into detail. So we came up with rapid solutions that were also hassle-free, that were open source, so we could develop something that was cost-effective and at the same time basic, so with a basic interface that will be easy and user-friendly, as we were not sure about, well, after developing the e-readiness evaluation for our teachers and our students, we realized that they had quite a low digital literacy at the time. So we needed something simple so they could start using it and build up from there. No? So we came up with this blended learning model through the years that you could see here in the screen. So for us, because TVET is an educational model that requires hands-on practice, we were convinced that a blended learning approach was the way to go, because you always need the students to practice in a real life scenario. But before that, we could introduce them to digital materials and digital learning scenarios so that they could get familiar with what they will later do in practice in real life, right? So we focus really on the digital side at first, as the schools were closed, so the students couldn't really do the hands-on trainings. And we came up with this self-paced learning model, student-led, where it was divided into 2 synchronous and asynchronous activities. So asynchronous activities, meaning that the students could go through the content materials any time of the day. And the synchronous activities were more in, let's say, live sessions with their teachers. And throughout the time, we adjusted according to the feedback that we got from students, that of course the upskilling provided to both the teachers, the trainers, and the students through our own, let's say, internal support, our own findings and research, but also with the support of the ILO and the International Training Center of the ILO, the ITC ILO, who kindly gave us mentoring support, some online courses to build up digital skills, especially for the teachers to be able to switch from this role of being in the classroom, doing much more eliciting activities, to a guiding role where they will basically work along with students and help them guiding through the learning materials that the own teachers produce themselves. So I would stop here. Juan Ivan, do you have?
Oh, thank you for sharing. No, this is very good. Thank you, Enrique. Yeah, I will have a few questions for you, and then this could be like a segue into the Q&A. No? So, in your experience, what was the hardest part to move to shift from in-person into blended?
Well, in this case, I think there were three key areas that poses challenges for us. So at first, of course, to build up the infrastructure of this new learning environment. So this not only relates to some technical skills that were needed to come up, to design and deploy a learning management system, an LMS, selecting the different digital tools that you would like to use for your learning, to build up your learning content materials. Actually, as a fun fact, currently I am using one of those tools. It's called Genially, which is an interactive presentation software. This infrastructure part, the hardest I think is the financial part. So basically, not only get the software tools that you will use, as well as the hardware in some cases, but also basically the tablets or the devices for the students, because in many cases, either, I mean, a TVET school usually don't have the financial capacity to get electronic devices for over 100 to 200, 300 students at the same time, no? So in this case, we were very lucky to receive some financial support from different partners in the project. Then you have the digital literacy challenge, which is, I think, the hardest one, because then in here you have really to start thinking to do an e-readiness assessment to check what is the level of your teachers, your students in terms of digital skills, so that you're able to deploy such a learning environment, no? And so that they can basically learn from it and not find challenges before even like going through the learning content, right? So I think this one was the hardest one, especially for the teachers, because we didn't only ask them to conduct their lessons online, but they were required to build new learning materials in this digital ecosystem. And this is extremely hard I think, for everyone. It's very time consuming. It's let's say an infinite feedback loop of going back and forth with the material, seeing what works, what doesn't work, making sure that you don't miss any points in the lesson that you will probably study sometimes verbally. You need to include everything, right? And as a last main challenge, I would say the standards, to basically unify standards across the programs that your TVET center has. So in our case, we have 5 different programs in hospitality and tourism, and we needed to make sure that the quality of those those learning content materials was the same across all programs. So this means that you have to align all teachers. You have to make sure that they all have a minimum level of digital literacy and quality in terms of the content materials that they build, no? And at the time, I mean, there were, at least in Cambodia, there were very little benchmarks to work with in terms of digital content materials and what is the minimum and what is enough to ensure quality, right? So this was also quite a, let's say, a journey building up this.
Yeah, thank you for that, Enrique. Very good. I've seen that there is a number of questions already popping up, but before we move into that, and thank you for those. Sorry, I mentioned to put it on the chat, but you can put it on the questions and answer function. And if some of you want to raise your hand, we can also activate your microphone if you prefer to speak. When this manual started, it was based on, as you said, now the lessons learned from COVID, right? Which came both as a challenge and as an opportunity for accelerating digitalization. Now, how would you say this manual is still useful today? Like we're 5-6 years after the COVID.
Well, I think, I mean, the manual is very practical. It has very well-defined steps that you need to undertake, and we took them at the time, not as diligently as we would like to, but we had this urge because the schools were closed, and we had to move forward a bit fast. But we believe the manual is very complete in terms of in what you need to think about when you start to digitalize your, let's say, your TVET system in any sector. And for us, I mean, I think the most, let's say, challenging steps, or the ones that require at least most of the attention from our own perspective, were step 3 to 5. So basically starting to prepare these learning scenarios, no? So because you have to think about, okay, I have this learning scenario in real life. Now I have to basically transition this into a digital environment, and this is not easy. There's many elements to consider throughout the digitalization process, and then the fourth, basically selecting, for instance, selecting the digital tools that are out there. So you have millions of them, also there's many. And how can you pick the most appropriate ones for your context, for your own context, for your own people, your I don't know, the school, the standards that you have to follow, no? Making sure also that they are cost effective. So this is also quite I think an important step that is also very well articulate in this blended learning guide. And finally, the step number 5, which is also relates to what you were mentioning about this digital credentials. So having this like validation of learning through micro credentials or through maybe e-badges. This is also something difficult to establish, because in this case, how can you make sure that they are recognized? Not only, I mean, in the school, of course, you can easily recognize this internally, but then you need to make sure that you check with the national authorities to make sure that these are recognizable at the national level, and then eventually you would look at the regional level or international level. That also depends on what type of curriculum you follow, right? So in our case, we are implementing, the school implements still the ASEAN curriculum. So this is a regional level curricula that follows certain standards that are not only based in the Cambodian TVET sector, right, but also at the ASEAN level.
Excellent. Thank you for that, Enrique. Please stay with us. I'm going to start reading some of the questions, and I'm more than happy to have you, Patrick. You know, I think we can definitely try to answer some of those collectively. Let me share my screen again here. So first question, would it be possible to get the guidelines and processes documents for replication in Bangladesh? Yes, of course. I believe Patrick has put already in the chat the link to the publication. So please feel free to use it, and you will see there is a number of self-assessment tools, etc., that we mentioned in the different steps that are there for usage. So please do feel free to use in Bangladesh or whatever needed. A second question, is there a standalone platform, or is it something that is compatible for most digital platforms? Well, in this case, there is not such thing as a standalone platform. I would say that there is different technologies. One of the challenges when digitalizing is what is your, like, underneath, what is the technology, what is the LMS, the learning management system that you have, some of which might be more prone to digitalization than others, and that is one of the things that in your self-assessment you need to identify. But I wouldn't say there is a standalone platform as such. Then there is a comment on the chat. Okay, then what role have social partners, employers and workers organizations plays in the shift of the new learning models? Very, very good question. So as you know, in the ILO, we are all about tripartitism, right? So we work, well, our constituents are governments, workers representatives and employers representatives. And for us, this is the core of what we do. We need to have this tripartitism where we find solutions and we create standards and recommendations that are accepted by the three. So, which is a challenge, which is lengthy also, but is needed. And I would say that my comment before to Enrique, that COVID really came as an accelerator. I think before COVID, there were heterogeneous advancements in the digitalization and blending of material, a lot of resistance to change, a lot of the challenges that Enrique was referring to, the technology, the literacy of both the students and the trainers. And that suddenly came as everybody was aligned. Governments, workers, employers, that we needed to find a solution so that people, despite the fact that they were at home, they could continue being upskilled and reskilled, right? Patrick, yes, please, over to you.
Thank you very much, Juan. No, I just want to say, from the workers and employers' perspective, really digitalization and artificial intelligence brings a lot. No, I mean, the interest of employers would be to ensure that the trainings are actually aligned with the needs of the market, the needs of their enterprise, and of course, through digitalization and the use of big data, for instance, you can have a clearer picture of what the labor market is about. So from the employer side, that means greater relevance and greater pertinence of the training programs employed. At the same time, from the workers' side, what workers' groups would be interested in looking at is making sure that the learners and the workers' aspirations and experience are actively taken into account within training programs. This is why we have this convention 142, which is really balancing both sides, right? And with digital means, you can have training programs that are better suitable and better suited, better fit for the learning modes of the workers and of the learners. So it brings a lot to actually improve the relevance both to the market and the relevance to the aspiration and experience of workers. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Patrick. Very, very good points. Totally in alignment. Let me continue with the questions. There is a question from Anania. The method of identifying which part of the traditional brick and mortar courses can be converted into self-learning material. I suppose is how do you choose, right? So maybe this one, Enrique, could be a good for you, no? So how did you decide it? Which methodology did you follow to decide what could be digitalized and actually probably what you found that couldn't, right?
Yeah. So for this is, I mean, it's quite hard. It takes me back to basically the learning scenarios. So you start basically designing different learning scenarios, and as you move towards it, then you will basically realize what really can be digitalized and what cannot be, depending on the type of training that you're trying to achieve, and also the learning outcomes. In here, I believe in the guide there is a template actually for to basically to come up with this. Also, I mean, this is also a group activity, I would say. I mean, at least in our case, in the experience we had in Cambodia, we had several meetings with the education team, with the teachers, to really go through the curricula and identify the activities that could really become completely digital. Some can be some parts can be digitalized, but some parts not, and some definitely cannot be digitalized. No. And this is, I think, a group activity to do at first, so that you get inputs from different stakeholders as well. And so this, besides let's say the TVET perspective, this can also apply for adult learning education or even training in the private sector. And also, you have to bring different stakeholders that are relevant, so that it's a decision taken in common, no? Where you have all perspectives.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, I was always thinking about, you know, the digitalization for just the sake of digitalization is not enough, right? You're often better off being trained in a brick and mortar setup with a good old trainer that shows you how to do something, you know, in a very physical manner, right? And probably you will be better equipped, especially in Tibet, to then perform certain tasks that if you do it with virtual reality and whatever and 3D printing and AI, right? So yes, those can be effective tools, but sometimes it's just better, and this is why the power of blended, right? Whereas some parts can be digitalized and some parts need to be really instructor-led and face-to-face. We have another question from Stephen. How does this manual help facilitate learning for adult learners who might not only be digitally literate, but perhaps also with where ITC is constrained, right? Now, very good question. We touched on it briefly. I mean, we understand that there is still a lot of I think there is 6.7 billion people according to ITU that is still not accessing the internet, and so the digital divide. Now there are new numbers that are even bigger about what they start calling the AI divide, right? So it's even further because you need connectivity, but also you need to have devices and access to these tools that are not always free or accessible in all the parts of the world. So definitely is a challenge. I would say that in part of this analysis on the strategy of a country, if people of a certain age, you know, need to have this is again a good example for blended, right? So maybe you need to have instructor-led sessions to understand how to access the internet, how to utilize your mobile phone, how to access certain resources, so that they can bridge this first gap, right? And then you move more into the digital spectrum where they know how to do it, and then they can come back to the class and they can say what worked, what didn't work, etc. Right? But definitely it's a challenge on itself. We've seen in different parts of the world that there is a younger generation kind of helping the older generation say, hey, you can do it like this, etc. So, but definitely this needs to be part of the analysis. If this is an area of great concern, then probably having specific curricula on how to help people using the new technologies for upskilling and reskilling, it will be of the essence. I don't know if Patri and Enrique, you would like to contribute on this one.
Yeah, just to add on, I mean, I understand in some regions it's just like the connectivity is not appropriate, or there is zero, I mean, little to none. There is also a lot of offline solutions out there that can help you at least to start with something. Also, there's a way to maybe develop certain learning materials with a little bit of connectivity, and then you can provide this in an offline way. Or if we go more into the technical parts, local servers can also be helpful to basically centralize all these, let's say, small digital learning environment in your own school or setup.
Absolutely, yes. I think there is also a number of initiatives that we call like low tech. So how you know, so they're not prioritizing more graphical content and videos, rather having make sure that the essential elements are there, so that even with a few kilobytes you can access and download things. Let's move to the next question. It's the same person, I think. Arthur Shears. So in some countries, digital may be too advanced due to the poor internet, high cost, and the lack of equipment. In Malawi, a few years ago, UNESCO Project STEP developed a series of paper-based instructor and student guidelines for different courses. Content included information with pictures and diagrams, questions and answers, and practical work assignments and performance checklists. This may be an alternative in some national circumstances. No, absolutely. Thank you for sharing, Arthur. Yes, I mean, we're not starting from scratch, right? There's been a lot of initiatives already by UNESCO and other specialized agencies of the United Nations in helping specific countries on accessing and digitalizing, right? I think Patrick mentioned in the introduction also there is overall a concern with capacity. So if we would like to continue training people on a face-to-face instructor-led offline fashion, you're going to hit the limit, right? Whereas we believe that with the advent of technologies and the usage of blending and digital, you can address the very long tail of people that are looking for having an opportunity at a reasonable price point or for free, right? But this is really the advantage of technologies, with all the impracticalities that you're mentioning, with all the limitations, but still, and there is a lot of opportunities to recycle and reuse materials that have been developed in other countries. Definitely, one of the projects that we are pursuing from the ILO, it's called DISCO, the Digital Skills Coalition, where it's looking about having this cross-fertilization across countries, where OER, so the open educational resources and other training materials, can be used by other countries, therefore reducing the cost of developing these and lowering the entry barriers. So definitely there is an opportunity on this. Thank you. Then Yusuf, can you please share the presentations? Yes, we will. After the session, we will send all the slides in PDF format to all of you, of course. Then Suresh, theory sessions can be online and embed. What about skills, practical, hands-on, and unique approach on augmented reality and virtual reality initiatives? Yes, we can touch on these too. Of course, it's part of the question that Enrique answered before, right? Not everything can be fully digitalized. Some things need to be still, practical sessions, face-to-face. My example would be if you were, for example, doing a training on repairing motorcycles, right? So if you do it on a dusty, classroom with a good old trainer and with your hands dirty with oil and probably you will be much better as a professional than if you learn how to repair a motorcycle using VR and using e-learning. Chances are that you get all these fancy trainings, but that once you're in front of a motorcycle, you will never be able to repair it, right? So there needs to be a combination of both things, and it needs to be, and it's part of the key, of the successes. What can be digitalized, what cannot, and in some cases you can go fully digital. In some cases, blended will be still the very good solution. Yes, Patrick, please.
Yeah, maybe I want to add a point here. It's on occupational safety and health. I mean, for tasks where you have really direct risks of being exposed to a certain task without having the competencies, maybe we can think about having a step-based approach. No, you start with VR, you get some skills, and you start with a task face-to-face and with the hands dirty and so on, so that you actually reduce the risk that you would have if you were, first time asked to repair a motorbike or something. So I think if we take into account occupational safety and health, there's also an element to be played here for this type of learning approaches. Thanks.
Excellent. No, thank you, Patrick. I was just checking the questions. There've been a few that you've answered, so I think those are now taken care of. I don't know if there is any other. There is one that just entered from Tilahum. So there is a critical need to raise awareness, build infrastructure, and strengthen the capacity of Tibet trainers. This is equally important to familiarize youth with digital learning and development platforms, including websites focused on skills development, sharing step-by-step learning materials for practical training across various occupations. It is essential to support effective skills acquisition. Yes, thank you. Absolutely. It's more a comment than a question, but absolutely, I think we are in alignment. And youth, and also as previous questions, people of that are older too, that we might find a challenge more for them to access or to circumvent this the digital divide, right? So two of them, and then again it falls down to the realities of the different countries. Some countries, as you know, they have a booming youth and it's a specific challenge, whereas others are more in the elderly side of things, and they also need to have specific solutions for that. So no, absolutely. Okay, so Patrick and Enrique, if you would like to complement any other thing, please feel free. There is another one. Okay. From Arthur, AUD in Bangladesh funded a project for skills promotion. Not sure if the ILO office there actually won that project, but I'm not sure if anyone is looking to digitalize short courses at NSDC. It is something that the government there should actually explore. Okay, I'm not particular updated on this one. I know that NSDC from India has a number of areas of collaboration with other countries, namely Bangladesh. And I know that the ILO is also working with them, but maybe Patrick, if you have more elements, happy for you to take this one.
Yeah, I mean, thank you very much, Arthur. So, I mean, we've been involved in the Sector Skills Council in Bangladesh. I'm not sure if it is under this project in particular, but I know that digitalization is actually quite high on the agenda of our colleagues there. But maybe we can catch up separately and try to see if we can do something.
Okay, thank you. Now suddenly people are topic. Okay, very good. We have another question from Fartun. How can SIYB trainers in Somalia effectively apply this guide in their works? Okay, so I think this is addressing, any trainers and any training institution to really go about their digitalization. They might have already started, or they might be completely starting. That's it really, and it's just taking the manual and going step by step, starting with the assessment, looking into the curricula that you have today. What is the strategy? What are the demands, and what can be done, right? So it really, in Somalia or in other countries, it really is about following the process and then iterating, and see how you can get it better. Sometimes you don't get it right the first time, and then you keep iterating. The feedback from the structures, the feedback from the students, the feedback from the employers are very valuable in all this process. Whereas they say, well, your last batch of students was very well prepared in this area, bravo, or this area is weaker than before, please review your processes, right? So I think it's good to follow the process and then to iterate and capture all the good feedback. Then we have another one. Alan, this is the ILO building a long-term research project around efficacy and digitalization of curriculum and e-Padijai within a specific occupational training programs. Well, we've been doing this for many years. I don't know if this is new. Definitely, this is one of the manuals. We have another manual that is going to be released now that is specifically on the digitalization of national skill systems. So we're looking more to work with governments. We have different parts of the house and our research colleagues publishing elements more linked to AI, which is the latest tendency. But as I said before, with the segmentation, whereas the global north seems to be more impacted by AI than developing countries. So yeah, to your question, is not really like a long-term research of such. Is just continuing our mandate as we've been doing in the last years. I think this is a good one for you, Patrick, if you want to complement.
Yes. I think it's very much of the ecosystem that I was talking about, right? I mean, there are things that are happening everywhere, and it's not HQ leading on this as opposed to the field, but we see that a lot of innovation are actually happening in the country offices of the ILO around the world. I mean, you saw the part on China, which is extremely promising. ILO Goya in Colombia that I mentioned has really a very innovative platform that I haven't seen anywhere else. And we have also some other tools like a service tracker to send surveys to those who are graduates from these programs to see if they actually benefited with a job, from the services. And there's a range of different programs that are being developed around the world, but we see that the innovation and dynamism is really much in the field, and it's when you are confronted with very concrete problems that you want to find some concrete solutions. So our colleagues are extremely innovative, and yes, we start to have an ecosystem on digitalization of training that includes parts of research, parts concrete tools, and that sounds very promising. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that, Patrick. Okay, I'm just checking again if there are any other questions or any hands raised. No, I think we have a few minutes to close. So if you want, Patrick, we can move to the closing remarks. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Juan. I mean, thank you for the great questions and the presentation. And Enrique, thank you so much. It's good to see you once again after so much time. I think I have 6 points, and I don't want to be too long, but I mean, 6 aspects that I found very crucial that were discussed today. First one is that digitalization is not about a new platform. It's not about having a course online. It is so much more than that. You have digital means to develop new competency standards. You have digital means to develop training materials, to follow up on your graduates, and so on and so forth. So I think it's important to keep an open eye on what are the new solutions and trying to see what you can do with it, much beyond posting a course online, which a lot of us would have done already. The second point that I want to make is that AI is a moving target. And you have a range of solutions today. Tomorrow morning, it may be different. So I think it's also important to refresh our knowledge and to share knowledge and to have new partnerships to actually make sure that we share these new solutions and they can be distributed and disseminated in all contexts. Maybe my first point would be about cost and access. We see that a lot of these solutions are actually fee-based, and of course, that limits the access to those who cannot afford to join these particular courses. So, for organizations like ours, it's very important that we actually try to make sure that these solutions are open to the maximum possible number of people and are also made more welcoming to all the walks of life and to all different groups of learners can have access to them. So it's really a fight on access that I think we have to take, and making sure really that these programs are inclusive and not only for the happy few. Maybe another point would be on quality assurance, because you will see a lot of different new solutions, but you need to make sure that you have actually this layer of quality assurance built in within your processes. I would not trust any AI-generated course directly if there is not someone actually looking if this AI solution is not creating new things, having vision or hallucinations. So the aspect of quality assurance and human quality assurance is, I think, very, very important. And next, I want to say, really, I want to take again what Juan was saying, the power of blended. The power of blended. And if there is one word that we need to keep from this webinar is this, it's not about applying the same solution everywhere, but it's really about looking at the context, looking at the learners group that you are working with, and looking at what blended solution is actually the best for the context and for the learners groups. And my last point is a call to everybody. If you want to work with us and to pilot some of these tools, please reach out to Juan or to myself. we would be very interested to talk to you and to see how we can actually pilot some of these tools within your own organization and as part of the training that you are running. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Patrick. Thank you again, Enrique, for making the time for us. Thank you to all the participants, and we'll be sending the presentation, the slides, and the link to the report later today. Thank you, and talk to you soon.
Thank you. Bye.